Shalom, my dear friends. Shalom. Today, the 26th day of the month of Elul, of the year 5776, corresponding to the 29th of September of the year 2016. These are auspicious days as we ascend to the coming festival of Rosh Hashanah, beginning this Sunday night, October the 2nd. And before I continue with today's studies, let me just point out that the schedule next week will be unusual. There will be no classes on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday of next week. The reason is because next Sunday, as I've said, is the eve of Rosh Hashanah, and we'll be in high gear with preparations for the coming festival on Sunday afternoon. I will therefore be unable to teach on Sunday afternoon. Monday and Tuesday are both Yom Tov. They are full festival with all of the stringencies, including not being able to use internet. Thank God we get a chance to get a complete holiday from the internet. And the next class after today will be on the 6th of October, that is Thursday the 6th of October at 4 p.m. and we will continue, God willing, with our Kollel studies on this coming Thursday and Thursday week, today a week. And after that there will be, God willing, a Kollel program on the Sunday afterwards, which will already be one day before the eve of Yom Kippur, 2 days before the eve of Yom Kippur, and Yom Kippur is on Wednesday of that week, and I'd like to give you the English dates of these various occasions. So we will have studies on Thursday the 6th of October, we'll have studies, God willing, on Sunday the 9th of October and Monday the 10th of October. After that, there will not be a Kollel program for the whole period until after the festival of Sukkot. We will, with God's help, be resuming our Kollel program after Sukkot on Wednesday the 26th of October and Thursday 27th of October. There will be, God willing, classes at some point during the festival of coming classes over the coming period in full in the Azamra weekly schedule and Torah calendar that you can get by the email. They'll also be advertised on the azamra.org website on the schedule page, which gives full details of coming classes and current study materials. And the Torah calendar for these coming days will be available in full on the calendar page of the site. So with that, as we are in this most auspicious period, let me, without further ado, go to our studies at the very climax of the book of Daniel. Shalom. Today, the 26th day of the month of Elul of the year 5776, corresponding to the 29th of September of the year 2016. And today we come to the concluding chapter of the book of Daniel, chapter 12 of Daniel, completing the whole round of his prophecies that were given to us some 2,400 years ago, and whose vision spans until our times and beyond, as we shall particularly be seeing today. And so let us turn to the text of Daniel chapter 12. Now, in my Hebrew edition here, which is a printed edition, you can see that before the beginning of chapter 12, chapter Yud Bes, there is a letter Samach. The letter Samach indicates that according to the editors of this volume, there is a break between the previous portion and the next portion, a break of lesser absoluteness than if there were a letter Hey here, which would indicate parasha petucha, an open parasha, which is more distinct from what goes before it. But here we have in this text a samach, which indicates parasha setuma, a closed portion. It's like a lesser paragraph break, and as I've indicated already, the main paragraph break, the main break in the portions comes in chapter 12, verse 4. Here you can see that before the beginning of verse 4 there is a letter Pei, and the letter Pei indicates parasha petucha, an open portion. And what we have in our present verses in chapter 12, verses 1 through 3, are the continuation of the words of the angel Gabriel revealing himself to Daniel, revealing what is going to be at the end of times. We've already, as we saw yesterday, seen the rise to power of the twin empire of Edom and Ishmael. And we've already seen in the closing verses of chapter 11, the dire situation of Israel at that time, or should I say at this time. And this is intensified by the words now of the angel to Daniel, Vo'is hahi, at that time, Yamod Michoel Hasor Hagodol, there shall arise Michael, the high priest in the heavenly court, the great Sar, the great angel, the angel that is Israel's guardian angel. The Sar HaGadol, the expression Gadol, Kabbalistically carries the connotation of love and kindness, and applies to the Malach, the angel Michael, who is the high priest in the heaven. Ha'omed al b'nei amecho, he is standing by the children of your people, and that is going to be so necessary because, as the verse continues, v'hoyeso eis tzoro asher lo nihyeso mehiyos goy ad o eis hahi, it shall be a time of trouble that has not been from there having been a people up until that time. Uvo eis hahi yimolet amcho, but at that time your people shall be saved. Kol animtzo kosuv basefer, all that is found written in the book. Well, now, to turn to our classic Torah commentators on this verse, the reason for Michael arising in the heavenly tribunal is explained by Rashi on this verse in a very interesting way. Rashi says to us that the expression at that time, Ya'amod, he shall stand, means he shall stand dumb and silent. Ya'amod in the sense of he shall cease. As Rashi comments here, Yishtatek, he shall be silenced, Ki'ilem, as one dumb. Sheyireh HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he will see that the Holy One, blessed be He, is now judging the nations of the world, including Israel. Be'atzmoi, God Himself, V'omer, and God is saying to Himself in much the same way that before the crossing of the Red Sea there was the heavenly debate between those who were coming in defense of Egypt. How could you destroy this great nation for the sake of this little people Israel? And now in the future, God is saying in this heavenly dialogue brought by Rashi, He'ach a'abed, how could I destroy Umo Gedoilo Kozoi, a great nation like this, namely the forces of Gog and Magog, Bishvil Yisrael, for the sake of Israel. So that is why V'hoyeso eis tzoro, it shall be a time of trouble, says Rashi, b'famalia shel malo, in the assembly, the tribunal of the heaven above. V'kategoria B'talmidei chachomim, there will be accusations against the Torah scholars. In other words, against all of the Orthodox Torah observant communities carrying the traditions of the authentic Torah from generation to generation, from the court of Moses. Bezoze or bezoze de bezoze. Here Rashi is bringing a phrase used in the Talmud depicting this period of time. There are people, predators after predators. The people are stripping the people of everything. As our sages have said in the Agadic section in the last chapter of the Talmud Babylonian tractate, Ksubois, marriage documents. So this time of great trouble and sorrow has been perceived by many people in the time of the terrible persecutions of the Crusader period, in the times of the persecutions of Khmelnytsky in the Ukraine and across Eastern Europe in the 1600s, of course in the Holocaust and many, many other pogroms that have taken place and persecutions, and we are seeing this rising today in our time. And as we shall see in other commentators here on our text, the main trouble of the future is coming from Ishmael. So let us take a look at the commentary of the Metzudat David here on our verse. And the Metzudat David is telling us that on the word ha'omed, referring to the angel Michael. Michael says the Metzudat is haragil lamod tamid lelamed sanegoria al Yisrael. It is Michael that is always standing in heaven to argue defense of Israel. And he continues, V'hoyasa oz tiye eis tzoro al Yisrael asher no yiyoso aleim me'eis hoyasa l'goy ado eis ahi. There should be a time of trouble for Israel that has not been from the time they were a nation until that time. And now Metzudas David connects this with the little horn and the earlier vision that Daniel had seen. Ki hakerena zeiro, the little horn, shehi mimalchus Yishmael, that is from the empire of Ishmael. Yatzer lahem ma'od, will cause them very great trouble. Kamo shenemar, as it says there in chapter 7 above verse 25, Ulekadishe elyonin yevale. He shall try to consume, to wear down the supreme holy souls of the tzaddikim of Israel. And it is then, precisely then, Bo'esahi, at that time, Ka'asher yatzer lahem me'od, at that time that he is causing such great trouble, Yimolet amacho, your people shall be saved. And he continues, Rak kol animso ksiv kosuv b'sefer Yimolet, only those that are written in the book will be saved. Rotzaloyma, this wants to tell us, Hatzadikim v'yirei Hashem, will be the righteous and those who fear Hashem. Shenema bahem, of whom it is said in Malachi, the end of Malachi chapter 3, verse 16, it says, Vayikosev sefer zikoron lefonov liyirei Hashem. There shall be written a book of memorial before him for those who fear Hashem. Well, now Rashi on the same verse interprets this very slightly differently. He says, Kol nimso kosuv basefer, everything found written in the book. Harizeh mikro katzar. This is a shortened, it's a concise verse. The mikra, the Hebrew text, is katzar. It's very shortened. Kol hanimtza kosuv b'sefer zeh. Everything that is found written in this book, al yedei achaloimois aksuvim, through all of the dreams that have been written earlier on, the visions, aksuvim boy, all of the dreams written in it, the visions, ad deketilas chiyuso, all the way to chapter 7, verse 11, it says, until that last chaya, that last wild beast will be killed. And then ve'kablun malchuso kedish elyonin. It says also in chapter 7, verse 18, that the malchut, the kingdom, will be received by the kadisha elyonim, the supreme holy souls of Israel. Hakol yiskayem. Everything will be fulfilled. So this is very hopeful to us, and the commentator Malbim has a very interesting comment on this portion of Daniel. I think it's well worth turning now to Daniel. First of all, he says on the arising of the angel Michael that, as he's already explained to us, at this time of when all of the heavenly forces and the laws of nature would absolutely require and necessitate, God forbid, the complete destruction of Israel according to the laws of nature, precisely then shall arise the angel Michael, according to the level of providential, miraculous, divine government of the world. The expression in Hebrew is hashgacha hanisi'it, hashgacha, providence, which is nisi'it, it is miraculous. In other words, Michael, the Kohen Gadol, will bring miraculous events down into the world through his providential defense of Israel, which will swing everything. And this will be above the mechanics of the system of fate, and he will subdue this system of natural law and necessity, because he is from among the foremost of the sarim, the supreme angels, and he is above those angels that govern and manage the natural order of divine law, and he's able to lift things to a high miraculous level. And why, explains Malbim, why does Michael then stand? Because of this time of trouble, because the divine mechanism will require a time of sorrow such as never has been. I would say we can safely say that there have been so many sorrows across the thousands of years since these words were written, that it's as it were God has intentionally spread the troubles from generation to generation in order to lessen their actual intensity. It's rather like we heard about the angel Gabriel. Instead of taking the coals directly from between the cherubs, he had an angel took it from the coal and put it into his hand, thereby somewhat cooling down the intensity of all of this. Well, now, Malbim writes very interestingly on verse 4, which we're about to come to, but I'd like to say this as an introduction to the coming sections, that we're going to hear how people were trying to calculate the time of the redemption, and they will be looking around for evidence, and they could not imagine that the foreordained end would be such a far way away in time. In every generation, each one is going to think that the time of redemption must arrive in his own lifetime. And it's for that reason that actually the time of the complete redemption is completely concealed. But at the actual end of time, all doubt will be removed. And the nearer we approach in time to the end, then the doubts will become less and less. Because this we know, that the redemption has to come before the expiry of 6,000 years. We're now in the year 5,777, so we have approximately 223 years maximum until it comes, but it could come before, as he will presently explain. So the more we get nearer to this time, we know that the redemption has to be getting nearer and nearer. And therefore, in earlier times, what they were certain about was very little. All they were certain about in the earlier times was about what had already happened in the short period of time between Daniel and their own time. And the area of doubt and uncertainty was very much greater because they had all the time ahead of them until the seventh millennium, the end of the sixth millennium, which is a great amount of time. But as we get nearer and nearer to the end, the time that has passed is far greater, and that which is certain, in other words, the actualization of what we have seen, is that much more certain. And indeed, we have followed through our commentators on chapter 11, showing us exactly how the history of the Second Temple period and right down through the destruction of the Second Temple has been so clearly evoked in such detail. And for that reason, as we approach the redemption, the doubts become less and less, and we can actually see here the all around us the signs of redemption. It seems to me that one of the most interesting aspects of all of our commentators, these classic commentators that we've been studying, is that they're in agreement that the final empire is that of Edom and Ishmael, and that the predominant force at the end is Ishmael. And we actually do see this taking shape around us in across Europe and across America, not to speak of Asia. We see the miraculous rising star of Islam in our time, which is conquering the West in ways that would have been unimaginable just 300 or 400 years ago. And with this, we can be confident that all the rest of what is written in this prophecy is going to be fulfilled. Well, now, we're coming to the section of Daniel which deals with mathematical calculations of the time of the end. And let me prefix the coming section of chapter 12 by saying that Malbim explains to us that, as we learn from the prophecy of Isaiah, Be'ito achishenu, in its time I shall hasten it, that these two aspects are both possibilities. Be'itoi, in its time, that is, if the redemption does not come about beforehand. As we've said, it's an absolute principle of our sages that it will come by the year 6000. However, achishenu, I can hasten it. God is capable of hastening the redemption according to the deeds and the repentance of the generation. And therefore, Malbim is going to later on provide some calculations of when the Geula could come and the latest by which it should come. Well, now, I think as a sign of how advanced we are in this prolonged period of redemption, the the long but sure dawn is that the dates given by Malbim, as I've already said in earlier discussion, have all passed. And so have the dates offered by Rashi and by the other earlier commentators. And I think that if we have our eyes open, we do see the miraculous redemption of Israel taking place around us. And it's a very terrible situation that we are facing across the world today, because the most terrible things are happening quite simultaneously with the most amazing things happening. Just to consider, for example, the miraculous return of the children of Israel to the land of Israel over the last 500 years, with exponential increases in influx of Jews, watching simultaneously the huge arousal of souls of Israelites, even those that were not born Israelites apparently and do not know why they are connected to Israel, but they just absolutely feel it in their hearts. We see all these signs of redemption. We see the growth and the influence of the land of Israel, the state of Israel in the world today. So against that backdrop, let us look at the ensuing words of the prophecy of Daniel. At that time, precisely, V'rabim, very many, V'rabim misheni admas ofo yokitzu, very many of those who were slumbering in the earth of dust will awaken. This is referring, say our commentators, to the Tchiyat HaMetim, the revival of the dead, which is to be contiguous with the period of redemption. Now, quite how you imagine this, I don't know, and how it should be imagined, I really don't know. I do very much believe in the incarnation of souls, and I do not think that we necessarily have to think of watching in a cemetery the grave suddenly crack open and bones starting to come out and get flesh on them is necessarily the way we need to picture this. We could also picture the children that are coming into the world with their souls that perhaps have been in the world in earlier periods, be it in the Holocaust or in earlier periods, many earlier periods. Rabim misheni admas ofo yokitzu, very many slumbering in the earth of dust, in the earth element, perhaps even incarnated earlier, but without having their spirituality aroused, but they will then get aroused, and eile l'chai olam. Some of them will be going to the life of eternity. These will be the righteous. Ve'eile l'charofois l'dir ein olam. These others to disgraces and shame and embarrassment, and for eternal disgrace. So our commentators tell us that this revival of the dead that is coming is a revival both of the righteous and of the wicked of earlier generations. We see the same thing in the closing verses of Isaiah, that the righteous will witness the tremendous redemption, while the wicked will watch in shame and disgrace that they have no share in this. So Malbim, in his commentary on these words, brings us the words of Rabbi Yitzhak Abravanel, that the revival of the dead will be contiguous with the time of the redemption, because many that suffered during the exile and surrendered themselves to martyrdom over for the sake of the sanctification of God's name, let none of them say that their hope has been lost. And likewise, the wicked that acted wickedly against them, both of them shall arise. The righteous to the life of eternity, because just as they despised the physical life of the body and were willing to hand themselves over to death for the sake of the glory of God's name, so shall they receive their eternal reward, while the wicked will receive their punishment and will watch the success of the very people that they tortured and that they stabbed and tormented. I think this is one of the keys to the great hatred around the world today being expressed for Israel. Precisely, many of the wicked are watching the phenomenal success of Israel on so many levels. And likewise, continues the Abravanel, the purpose of all this is that we need to know that there should arise people that have been marked in each and every generation who will tell and explain, tell about their lives and tell about who is really important and honored in the world of truth, as opposed to this false and upside down world. And he says the truth of the faith of Israel will become known to all of the nations, that God is one and his name is one. We're now continuing with the Hebrew text of Daniel here. We come in verse 3 to a verse which is central to all of the drashot of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai in his work, the Holy Zohar, whose name is mentioned in this verse. V'hamaskilim, the truly wise, yazehiru, they shall shine, k'zoyhar horokia, like the gleaming, brilliant shine of the expanse of the heavens. Umatzdikei orabim, those who are making righteous the many, who are bringing people to learn the ways of God and return to God. These matzdiki horabim kakuychovim, they shall be like stars, la'olam avoed, forever to eternity. A verse, as I've said, which is central to the drashot of the Holy Zohar. The band of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and his students were the maskilim, who were granted an understanding of the secrets of Torah above all of the earlier generations, and Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was given license to reveal the secrets of the Torah in the Kabbalah, which we have today, has come down to us through the chain of tradition via Rabbi Yitzhak Luria, the Ari, Rabbi Yisrael Baal Shem Tov, Rabbi Nachman. These are the maskilim who speak and are addressing Israel at the end of time. And these are the ones whose true shine is like the heavens, and they are like the stars. All of this may be understood very richly through the teachings of Rabbi Nachman about the way that each soul of Israel is like a shining star, a point of light shining forth. So now we come to the after this glorious depiction of the life of wisdom at the end of time, which will spread to all the people who are willing to turn to God and open themselves to faith. We now come to these concluding revelations by the angels to Daniel. A new portion, therefore, opening up a new parasha from verse 4. V'ato Doniel sesoim advorim v'hasoim hasefer ad eis kates. You, Daniel, seal up the matters, close up the matters, seal the sefer. The word sefer not only means a book in Hebrew, but also the root of sefer is the same as sfar, which means to count, mispar, number. And of course, we have so many calculations offered in this book, but it's all sealed up. It was to be put by Daniel in a way that would not be readily comprehensible until the end. Ad eis kates, until the time of the end. Yeshoitetu rabim v'sirbe hadoas. At the end, then the multitude shall go wandering around in search of meaning, in search of understanding, all the way up to the end. Only by the end will it be absolutely certain what is happening. V'sirbe hadoas, there will be multiply the knowledge, the understanding, as prophesied by Isaiah in chapter 11. The world will be filled with the knowledge of Hashem as the waters cover the sea. So in the same vision, which has been continuing on for all these several chapters, V'ro'isi ani donil, v'hinei shnaim acherim oimedim. I, Daniel, was watching, and behold, two others, Omdim echod heino lisfas hayor, ve'echod heino lisfas hayor. That these two others standing, one there by the edge of the bank of the river, and one there, the other side, by the bank of the river. So the identity of these two angels is not revealed to us, but it would very much appear that these are the angels of Edom and Ishmael, who are seeking to understand just how long they have before their complete disappearance, their downfall. Vayomer lo ish levush abadim asher mimal lemeimei hayor. And he said, one of these two angels said to the man wearing the linen garments, to the angel Gabriel has been speaking to Daniel, they also want to know, Asher mima'al lemeimei hayor, for Gabriel is above the waters of the river. There is a flow of divine influence coming into the world, and on the one side is the side of Ishmael, which would be the right-hand side. On the other is the side of Edom, which would be the left-hand side. But Gabriel himself is above the waters, so they need to turn to him to understand about the coming providential direction of history. They ask, Ad mosai kates haplois, until when is the end of the wonders, the wondrous end that is foreordained? Voeshma es hoish levush habadim, I heard the man garbed in the linen, asher mimal lemeimei hayor, who is above the waters of the river. Vayorem yeminoi usmolo, he lifts up his right arm and his left arm, el hashomayim. He's taking a solemn oath, incorporating both of these two sides, the right and the left. His prophecy is coming both to Ishmael and to Edom and to Israel, the center column, lifting them up to the heavens. Vayishova b'chei ha'olam. He is taking an oath by the life of the world, by God Almighty. Ki lemoed moadim v'chitzi, for the season of the seasons and a half. Uchechalois napetz yad am kodesh. At the conclusion of the scattering of the hand, the arm, the power of the holy people, when the time of the dispersal has come to an end, tichleno chol eile, there shall end all of these. It is then that all of these shall come to an end. So Daniel heard this said by the angel Gabriel answering those two angels. Vani shomati v'lo ovin. I heard, but I cannot understand. V'omer Adoni mo acharis ele. I said, Master, my master, what is the end of these? When will it be? And he won't answer him directly and clearly. Vayomer lech Daniel. He says to him, "Go, Daniel, that is the conclusion of your vision and your work. Kisesumim v'chasumim hadvorim ad eis kates. For closed up and sealed are the matters until the time of the end. They will only be understood and evident to all when they actually come about. Yisboreru v'yislabenu v'yitzorfu rabim." 3 terms of purification. Yisboreru, they shall be purified, they shall be whitened, and they shall be steeled in the crucible, the very many. V'hirshiu rishoim, but the wicked shall do wickedness. It's precisely what we see in our times, a time of light and a time of darkness. The penitents, the tzaddikim, are getting pure and pure. The wicked are going overboard with wickedness and extremism. V'lo yovinu kol rishoim. All of the wicked shall not understand these pieces on the great chessboard of the world who God has put on the side of the forces of evil. They will not understand what they're doing as they play out the game. The amaskilim yovinu, but the truly wise shall understand. Ume'eis husar atomid, and from the time of the casting aside of the perpetual offering. This apparently is referring to the perpetual offering in the Holy Temple, on which everything depends. The perpetual offering, namely the daily offering of a lamb in the morning, a lamb in the afternoon, this is the essential temple offering from the time of Mount Sinai, the inauguration of the wilderness sanctuary. And even when there's no physical temple, the tamid can be offered, and even when there was a temple at the very end, there was already the tamid was no longer offered for some time before the destruction. So that is a key event in the intensification of the final exile. From the time of the turning away of the tamid, veloseitz shikuts shoimem, and the giving of the shikuts, the giving of the abomination, that is shomem, that is desolate. Yomim elef mosayim v'sishim. The number of days, or this word could also be interpreted as the number of years, is 1,290. Well, we shall take a look at some of the different interpretations of these calculations in our next session, which will be the last of our sessions on the book of Daniel. We now complete the going through the text of the work, and our concluding section will be a summation and a look at some of these calculations and where they lead. So continuing with this, Ashrei amachake, happy is he who shall wait. V'yagia leyomim, he shall come to the days of elef shloishim v'chamisho, he'll come to the days of 1,335. So again, we shall look at commentaries on these numerological verses later on. V'ato, but as for you, Daniel, the final words of the angel to Daniel, you can now rest, your mission is complete. Ato leich lakates, go forward to the end, your soul will be witnessing this as these events will unfold. Go to the eights. V'sonuach, you may rest. V'sa'amoid legoyrolocho, you will stand for your destiny. Leketz hayomin, at the end of the days. The grammatical form of yamin is an Aramaic form of the Hebrew word whose plural of days would be yamim, the end of yamim, days. The Kabbalists point to a distinction between where the phrase is written Ketz Hayamim, or here Ketz Hayamin with a nun. The word Yamin indicates the right-hand side, which Kabbalistically is the side of kindness, as opposed to the Ketz Hayamim, the end of days, with a mem, final mem, which would indicate the turbulent times of the final judgment. So with that, we conclude our study of the text of Daniel chapter 12, and we shall come in the next and last of this series on Daniel to look at the numerological sections of these chapters. So I will now take a short break, my dear friends, and I'll be back again in just a few minutes with our next section of studies of the Mishnah.
Shalom.
Back again with the today of the Holy Mishnah. Shalom. Today, the 26th day of the month of Elul of the year 5776, corresponding to the 29th of September 2016. And today we come to study the third chapter of Tractate Maccot, which comes to the subject from which the tractate takes its name of Maccot. In Hebrew, a makkah is a blow, and in this case, this is the blow of lashes administered on the instructions of the Bet Din, the court, and this is why this section comes at the conclusion of the laws of the Sanhedrin. Maccot, Tractate Maccot, is really a continuation of Tractate Sanhedrin. We had in Tractate Sanhedrin the discussion of the organization of the hierarchy of Torah law courts in Israel, from the great Sanhedrin in Jerusalem, sitting by the side of the temple courtyard in the chamber of the hewn stones, the two smaller Sanhedrins on the Temple Mount, at the gates of the temple main courtyard and at the gates of the Temple Mount. And there were Sanhedrins across the country. Every respectable little town with just 120 people could have its own court of 23 judges who were capable of adjudicating in capital cases and cases of malkut, of the punishment of lashes, could be imposed by a Bet Din of 3 dayanim, 3 qualified judges who had a semicha in the time of the temple from the great Bet Din, or from one of the rabbis that had semicha, had ordination from the Sanhedrin. And let us turn first, in order to understand the overall subject of the penalty of lashes, to the Torah portion in which it is discussed, and that is in the book of Deuteronomy in chapter 25. Chapter 25, the opening verses, Ki yeh riv bein anoshim, when there is some argument between men, V'nikshu el amishpot, they shall draw close to the trial, to the law. Ushefatum, they, namely the judges, shall judge the parties involved, shall judge them. V'hitzdiku es hatzadik, they shall justify the righteous. V'hirishiu es orosho, they shall judge guilty the wicked. Through their investigations they shall determine who was truly in the right and who was in the wrong. And after all these adjudications, v'hoyo, it shall be, im bin hakois horosho, if a son of being hit is the wicked person, if he is a son of, namely qualified to be. The Hebrew word hakois is a verbal noun indicating striking or beating, and by tradition this was done by a whip made of hides of ox with hides of donkey together. So if the individual was a rasha, a wicked person has done something wrong, that he has to be beaten. The procedure is v'hipiloi ashufet, the judge shall have him cast down. The judge does not do this himself. He has the agent of the court to administer the actual lashes, but the judge, in other words, the president of the court, orders cast down the person condemned to receive the punishment of the blows. V'hikohu, he shall strike him. This is referring to the agent of the court. Hikohu lefanav, he shall strike him in front of him. Kedei rish osoi, in accordance with the wickedness of the person, sufficient to cover the wickedness involved, b'mispor, within the number. Within the number of, the next verse goes on, 40. Within the number of 40 shall he strike him. B'mispar, from this we learn that the number of blows is within 40, namely one less, 39. It's corresponding to the 39 curses in Genesis. After Adam and Eve sinned, God cursed each one, Adam, Eve, and the serpent and the earth. Adam, Eve, and the serpent 10, and the earth 9, total of 39. There are 39 blows, which are the inverse of the 39 blessings of abstaining from the forbidden labors on the Shabbat. 39 is a very significant number. So the number of blows is within the number 40. Yakenu, shall he strike him? Lo yosif. He may not add to the number. The agent of the court is in dire trouble if he adds to the numbers. Pen yosif lehakoisoi al eile makorabo, lest he increase to strike him over and above these prescribed numbers of lashes. Makorabo, a great blow. And if he caused the person's death, then the agent of the court, had he added one extra blow, he would himself be subject to the death penalty for murder outside of the his authority. And besides that, v'niklo ochicho le'inecho, this would cause your brother, after all, the condemned individual is your brother, this excess punishment would cause him to be niklo, to be shamed, to be seen lightly and abused by you, le'inecho, in front of your very eyes. And the Torah goes straight on to an apparently unconnected subject. Lo sachsoim shor bedisho. You shall not muzzle up the mouth of the ox while he is in disho, while he is doing his job. The ox is being used to trample on the stalks of the beans and the crops, the corn, in order to separate the kernels from the stalks. That is called daish, that is threshing, and dishoy is while the ox is doing this work. The ox must be allowed to have free access to the grain and to eat it. You're not allowed, the owner of the ox, the person supervising the threshing, is not allowed to muzzle up the mouth of the ox. The ox is also a divine creature and is entitled to have a little taste of the crops that he is working with. So it's very significant that this is part of exactly the same parasha. You see the samach, the letter indicating the break of the portions between the ox threshing and the next law, which is about the law of yibum, the levirate marriage, when the widow has to marry her late husband's brother if her husband had no children. So that is a new subject separated by a paragraph break. But why is the mitzvah of the prohibition of muzzling the ox while he's threshing immediately consecutive after the law of Maccot, which is called in a rabbinic discourse malkut, from the Hebrew expression loike. Loike, he suffers blows. Malkut is the administration of the lashes. Why is the commandment about muzzling the ox right after that? And the answer, the key to this is that we're learning something very significant. We're learning that though not all of the 365 prohibitions in the Torah are punishable by lashes. We have in Tractate Sanhedrin already enumerated all of the different prohibitions of the Torah that are punishable by the most severe sanction of the Bet Din, which is the death penalty. We saw in Sanhedrin discussions successively of when was the penalty of stoning or of burning by fire or of strangulation or decapitation by the sword. When was each one applicable? And we followed that by the whole, in the beginning of Maccot, with the issue of the Edim Zomamim, because we had to establish under which circumstances would the treacherous false witness be subject to the same or a different punishment from the evil he wished to inflict. And from that, because bound up with that was the question of whether a treacherous witness would, if he testified that somebody had to go into exile through manslaughter, would he himself have to go into exile? So that brought us to the subject of those who go into exile and to differentiate between willful and unwitting killing. But now we come to all of the other prohibitions of the Torah. Of the 365 prohibitions, the most severe, such as idolatry and incest, are punishable by execution. But the penalty of lashes, the Torah penalty of lashes, is for Torah prohibitions that involve some action in most cases. There are one or two cases where lashes are administered for a sin that is verbal, as in the case of the false witness. But in most cases, the penalty of lashes is administered for the violation of a Torah prohibition not involving the death penalty, but which is involving some kind of action. And this is what we learn from the semichut, the closeness, the contiguity of the verse about the punishment of lashes to the verse about the do not muzzle an ox while he is threshing. In other words, just like that is an action, so the other prohibitions of the Torah that involve some action will be punishable by lashes. Now, of the Torah prohibitions that are not punishable by the death penalty, by the earthly bet din, we have seen already that there are a number of Torah prohibitions that are punishable by various degrees of divine sanctions. One of them is the divine sanction that the person would die at the hands of heaven. The other would be that the person would suffer the penalty of karet, excision, which may mean that they die childless, and may mean that their years are shortened, and may mean that their life in the world to come is curtailed in some sense. Now, of the 365 Torah prohibitions, some involve no action whatever. For example, do not hate your brother in your heart, or do not take vengeance. So for the prohibitions where there is no specific act, there is no human penalty of lashes. That is up to God's method of governing the universe to see how these traits and are dealt with. But when it comes to the Torah prohibitions involving actions, do not cook meat and milk together, do not wear a garment that has linen and wool woven in together or sewn in together, and various other Torah prohibitions. Don't tattoo yourself. In the case of men, don't raise off your beard with a razor. Don't cut your hair in a certain idolatrous fashion. All of these are punishable by the penalty of lashes, including some of those sins that are punishable by the penalty of death at the hands of heaven or by karet, excision. It can be that if a person is punished with the lashes, this itself will lift off from him the divine retribution that would otherwise come if he were not subject to the lashes. So, reading from the introduction of Rabbi Pinchas Kahati in his commentary on the Mishnah to our chapter, he says, this chapter deals with those who are liable to the punishment of Malkut and the detailed laws concerning this. And there are three kinds of people that are liable to the penalty of lashes. The first is one who violates a prohibition over which one would be liable to the penalty of karet, of excision, but that does not carry with it also death at the hands of a rabbinical court. An example would be somebody who eats chametz, leavened bread, on Pesach. That if, when he did that, he was subject to a warning by human witnesses, don't eat chametz on Pesach, because somebody who does that will get lashes, subject to lashes, that this person will be subject to the penalty of lashes, and this will release him from the heavenly penalty of karet. And indeed, if a person, even without the lashes, has sinned with such a sin, but he repents or she repents, is also forgiven by the heavenly court. Now, the second category of transgressions for which there may be the penalty of lashes, continues Rabbi Pinchas Kahati, somebody who transgresses against a Torah prohibition for which the penalty is death at the hands of heaven, and this would include, for example, somebody who ate a grain produce of the land of Israel that had not yet been tithed correctly to separate the priestly terumah, 2%, the Levitical 10%, and the 10% of the second tithe eaten by the owner in Jerusalem in most years. So somebody who eats tevel, that is produce that has not been tithed, is liable to death at the hands of heaven, for he has been eating the priestly portion. He's not allowed to do that. So that is the second category. The third category of transgressions that is punishable by the penalty of lashes is somebody who transgresses a prohibition involving some action. For example, if he eats meat and milk cooked together, and all of the total number, he now summarizes how many of each category are there. The total number of transgressions that involve karet, excision, over which a person could receive the lashes, is 21. All of the different cases of those liable to death at the hands of heaven who would receive lashes, they are 18. And all of those liable to the penalty of lashes where there's no excision and no death at the hands of heaven is a total of 168. So altogether, the total number of prohibitions subject to the penalty of lashes is a total of 207. And these 207 are not enumerated in our chapter. They are enumerated in full in Maimonides' code, in the laws of the Sanhedrin, where he enumerates each and every commandment which is subject to each and every one of the different penalties. But our Mishnah in chapter 3 of Tractate Mishnah Maccot deals with those cases where there is something unusual that needs to be stated and understood about the prohibition in question. And with that, let us turn to the text of our Mishnah Maccot, chapter 3. Ve'elu hein aloikin. These are those who are subject to malkut. Now, the Hebrew word malkut should not be confused with the word malchut, which is spelled with a chof, but the Hebrew word malkut, which is the noun from this verb lokeh, has a kuf in it. These are those who receive the lashes. The Hebrew word lokeh means to suffer. It's a nicer term for a very harsh and unpleasant punishment of these lashes. These people are plagued with this suffering. And the Mishnah is going to deal with various cases in in order of thematically associated prohibitions. The first of the thematically associated prohibitions are those of incest. These are cases of incest which are not as severe as the primary incest prohibitions like mother and son, father and daughter, which we had earlier in Sanhedrin, liable to death penalty. Habor al achoisoi, somebody who comes upon his sister, has physical union with his sister, that is punishable not by an earthly bet din. That is a level of incest that is subject to the heavenly karet, to the penalty of excision. If they were to be issue from this union, the child of such an incestuous union would be a mamzer, what would loosely be translated in English as illegitimate, and not a full member of the kahal, the assembly of Israel. Habor al achois, somebody who has relations with the sister. Va'al achois oviv, if he had relations with the sister of his father, his paternal aunt. Va'al achois imoi, or the sister of his mother, his maternal aunt. Va'al achois ishtoi, the sister of his wife. Va'al eishes ochiv, if he had relations with the wife of his brother outside of the special case where the brother has died childless and he then takes in the widow of his late brother, but in the normal case where his brother is alive, he may not marry his brother's wife. V'al eishes achi oviv, he may not marry the wife of the brother of his father, his paternal uncle's wife, his aunt by marriage. Union with her is also subject to the penalty of lashes. V'al hanido, this is a prohibition that is of far greater application if a Israelite man has relations with a woman, be she his wife or not his wife, and she is in a state of nido, menstrual impurity. That is a Torah prohibition, transgression of which is subject in the times of the Sanhedrin to the penalty of lashes if the person was witnessed and duly warned. Almono l'chohen gadol, a widow to the high priest. The high priest is specifically prohibited from marrying a widow in Leviticus, the beginning of Parashat Emor. Gerusho v'chalutzo l'chohen hedyoit, a divorced woman or a chalutzo, that is a woman who was who had been widowed without children from her husband, and her husband's surviving brother did not want to marry her under the law of Yibum, levirate marriage, but he gave her chalitzo, that is, she removed his shoe, and they went through the ceremony described in Deuteronomy, Parashas Ki Seitze, of chalitzo. She is a kind of divorced woman who is also forbidden to be married to a kohen hedyoit, to an individual priest, let alone a high priest. Even an individual priest may not marry a divorced woman or a woman that received chalitzo. More prohibitions that carry the punishment of malchus, of lashes. Mamzeres unesino liYisrael. A mamzeres, the woman that is the daughter of an illicit union, an incest union, or the daughter of a mamzer or of a mamzeres, she will always be a mamzer to all the generations, illegitimate. Nesino, the Nesinim are the class of the Gibeonites who came to Israel in the time of Joshua and were appointed to be a kind of serf class in the service of the temple. They do not have the status of a full Yisrael and may not marry an Israelite man and vice versa. So these two categories, if one or other party violates this and marry, they are subject to the lashes. Bas Yisrael, an Israelite girl that is marrying a nosin or a mamzer, she marries or has relations with even outside of marriage, with a nosin, one of the Gibeonites, or with a mamzer. Almono ugerusho chayovim aleo mishum shnei shemois. So now this is a new associated law. If there was a woman that was simultaneously both a widow and a divorced woman, the high priest who married her would be liable for 2 sets of lashings on account of shnei shemois. There is 2 names. In other words, each of the commandments of the Torah is itself a divine formula, divine name, and the names here are the prohibition of marrying a widow by the high priest and the prohibition of any priest marrying a gerusha, a divorced woman. There's 2 names associated with one and the same woman. Gerusho v'chalutza, however, a woman that was both a divorced woman but also a chalutzo, she had received the chalitza, she had gone through the ceremony of chalitza instead of marrying her first husband's, her earlier husband's surviving brother. She had given him the chalitza. These 2 are not 2 different prohibitions. The reason why a chalutza is prohibited to a priest is not explicitly written in the Torah. This is a rabbinical law that applies to a chalutza because she has gone through a kind of divorce with the brother of her dead husband. And having gone through this kind of divorce, she comes under the general category of gerusha, a widow, a divorced woman, and for that reason, if she did marry a priest, be it the high priest or a regular priest, the transgressor is only liable because of one name, one prohibition, because the prohibition of chalutza to a Kohen is subsumed under the prohibition of gerusha. So with that, we conclude today's study of Maccot, chapter 3, Mishnah 1. And my dear friends, let's take a very short break of just a couple of minutes to get a gulp of something to drink, and then we'll go back to a few concluding words just before we break for the Rosh Hashanah break. And we have spent quite time today on our studies of Tanakh and on our studies of Mishnah. I think in both cases we have covered some very interesting and very significant and important ground, but unfortunately this leaves us with very little time for the concluding section of our daily studies. This is something that I feel a need to meditate and contemplate and pray about in exactly how we can balance our studies. I have very great enthusiasm always for the Tanakh and very great enthusiasm always for the Mishnah, and these are the real meat and drink of the Torah pathway, but the part that is the foundation of the whole edifice is the studies of emunah, of faith in Chassidut. And we now stand within a matter of very few days before the great Rosh Hashanah. For followers of Rabbi Nachman, the significance of Rosh Hashanah is perhaps greater than is felt by very many people, because Rabbi Nachman made such emphatic importance on being with him on Rosh Hashanah, which is understood and interpreted by very many of his lovers and followers as meaning to actually attend his very gravesite on the festival of Rosh Hashanah, and many thousands of people do converge upon the Ukrainian city of Uman, where there is a very great synagogue and a number of other synagogues and assembly places and smaller prayer groups, all taking place within just a few minutes' walk of Rabbi Nachman's gravesite. I've attended this for very many years, and it's the most amazing, extraordinary experience. And I've also learned that one can be with Rabbi Nachman no matter where you are. I take with me on Rosh Hashanah, when I go to the synagogue, a teaching of Rabbi Nachman. I normally make a photocopy of the teaching that I want to focus on over the festival and put it in my pocket, and I have my Machzor, my festival prayer book for the very many lengthy prayer services of Rosh Hashanah as we practice it in the Breslov communities. In past years I have been for Rosh Hashanah here in Yerushalayim, and we have the very great and beautiful Breslov synagogue in the center of Jerusalem, in the area known as Mea Sha'arim, where several thousand people assemble for the Rosh Hashanah prayers. We start on Sunday at about 5 p.m. with the evening afternoon service, and then go on to the evening service at considerable length. The morning prayers will start around a little after 6 in the morning and go on till about 3 in the afternoon. Between the morning service, the Torah reading, and particularly the sounding of the shofar, and then the very lengthy Musaf additional service, with each of these prayers having its own associated piyutim, prayers and ritual poetry, which with a very beautiful accompanying melodies sung by a very strong, powerful congregation. And no sooner do we finish the so-called morning service at 3 p.m., then we grab our festival lunch on Monday, after which we'll be back in the synagogue by about 4:30, 5 o'clock for the afternoon service, and then the evening service of the second day. And on Tuesday morning we shall have the same repetition in a new, perhaps, and hopefully enhanced way of the same lengthy services going on: the morning service, the Torah reading and the shofar blowing, and the Musaf additional service lasting again till around 3 in the afternoon, and then come to the afternoon service, and it's a very intense. And then on the day after the Rosh Hashanah festival, that is next Wednesday, which will be already the 3rd of Tishrei, we have the fast of Gedalia, which is a good way to come down somewhat from the intensity of Rosh Hashanah by just putting the body into the mode of fast and while beginning to reconnect with this world. The fast of Tzom Gedalia always falls on the same day of the week as the fast just 1 week later, the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur, and is already a preparation for getting into the mode of denial of the body in order to give strength and power to the soul. So as we stand on this very solemn period of the year where we really have to face our existential state in this world, standing before God in judgment, at a time when the world is at a crossroads and we all need to do very serious thinking about what is our true purpose and our true destiny, I'd like to conclude today's session by wishing you Shana Tova Umevorechet, a good and a blessed year, Shana Metuka, a sweet year with good health, strength, courage, simcha, great joy, with good livelihood, and may the Almighty answer all the requests of your heart for good. With that, my friends, I'm going to bid you goodbye until exactly a week today, from today, Thursday of next week. And as I've said, all of the scheduling of our classes will be advertised and posted in the schedule email and on the schedule page of Azamra website. With that, my dear friends, I wish you from Yerushalayim for this coming Shabbat Shalom Umvorach, a good and a blessed Shabbat, and Shana Tova Vorechet, a good and a blessed year. Shalom from Yerushalayim.
Da 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 da.